Brittle beauty that nature made so frail, whereof the gift is small and short the season, flowering today, tomorrow apt to fail. Brittle Beauty by Henry Howard. A quick introduction to Glimmer. She's a secondary antagonist in The Hunger Games, played by Levin Rambin in the movie and Mariana Lewis in The Hunger Games on stage. She's the female tribute from District 1, Marvel's district partner, and a member of the career pack in the 74th Hunger Games. With that said, I'm fascinated by Glimmer and how much Suzanne Collins communicates through such a minor character. That's what I want to unpack here. We know pretty much nothing about Glimmer's life before the games. She's from District 1, geographically centered around the U.S. states of Montana, Idaho, Utah, and Wyoming. Like the other careers, she's probably been training for the games her whole life. According to the movie, careers attend specialized combat academies in their districts, where they're instructed by prior victors and skilled trainers until they volunteer, usually at age 18. If we accept this mode of training as canon, we can assume that Glimmer attended such an academy and may have known Marvel before he became her district partner. In the Hunger Games Adventure, a Facebook game which apparently exists, Glimmer states that her father is a craftsman who makes flowers, namely tulips, from finely wrought crystal. The last name the fandom gave her is Belcourt, which I love. Unlike Foxface, Kato, and Rue, Glimmer doesn't get a mention from Katniss upon watching the recap of the reapings across Panem, but we can assume that she, like the other careers, volunteered, otherwise Katniss would probably have mentioned the anomaly. But Glimmer is first directly mentioned during the chariot parade. The tributes from District 1 ride out in a chariot pulled by snow-white horses. They look so beautiful, spray-painted silver, in tasteful tunics glittering with jewels. Being spray-painted silver brings to mind how Glimmer presents herself to the Capitol. She wants to be seen as silver, unforgettable and beautiful, Capitol adjacent, not common coal. In the movies, Glimmer wears a fuchsia dress mostly covered by a fur shawl, I think shawl is the word, and a sparkly cape of the same color with sequins and feathers, representing the luxury goods District 1 exports. Glimmer's headpiece, interestingly, frames her face, drawing attention to her main advantage in the games. During training, Glimmer is never mentioned by name, but we get a good account of what the careers in general are doing. When the tributes are released by Atala, the head trainer, the careers go straight to the deadliest looking weapons in the gym and handle them with ease, trying, and succeeding, to intimidate the others as the game makers look on. Katniss later calls Glimmer incompetent with the bow and arrow, the only weapon we see her using in the games, so what was she showing off with here? Maybe the knife she used during the bloodbath in the movies? Anyways, at lunch they gather rowdily around one table, as if to prove their superiority, and to show that they're not afraid of one another. This is probably where they start to work out the career pack's dynamic and pecking order of sorts. The social battleground is where Glimmer flourishes, and I have no doubt that she turned on the charm and tried to make connections to help her in the games here. We don't know her exact training score, but it was in the 8 to 10 range. While a high score certainly helped, Glimmer's real time to shine is the interviews. Katniss asks herself, why am I hopping around like some trained dog trying to please people I hate? And that one question really highlights the difference between Katniss and Glimmer, between careers and non-careers. The careers aren't questioning anything. They're thinking what they've been taught. This is an honor. They want the Capitol's attention, not just on a pragmatic level to gain sponsors and increase their chances of survival, but because they think this is glory. They take pride in being the Capitol's favorites. Glimmer is a prime example of that, as the Capitol's approval plays a huge role in her strategy. Think back to that sentence, why am I hopping around like some trained dog trying to please people I hate, later, because dogs are a big motif with the careers. Glimmer is very image conscious, and understandably so. While I don't think Glimmer is incompetent, I don't think she's on the same level as her peers in terms of combat. So she needs to make herself stand out in a different way, by appealing to the capital with the conventional beauty that they prize. Glimmer's apparent conviction that appearance is what matters and what will protect her is part of her district's ideology and has probably been drilled into her since childhood. This is what makes you special. This is what will save your life. The capital prioritizes appearance over everything else, and District 1 tends to copy the capital and incorporate its culture into their own as an effort to get closer to the power in Panem. Glimmer's outfit in the interviews isn't as tasteful as her toga. In the movies, she wears a short, light pink dress with a flared skirt. In the books, the girl tribute from District 1, looking provocative in a see-through golden gown, steps up from the center of the stage to join Caesar for her interview. You can tell her mentor didn't have any trouble coming up with an angle for her. With that flowing blonde hair, emerald green eyes, her body tall and lush, she's sexy all the way. Let me remind you of something. We never get Glimmer's exact age in the book, but I assume all the careers are on the older side to maximize training time. She's 17 in the movies, and at most in the books she's 18 years old, and she's being presented as sexy. And that is fundamentally so messed up, but with more context, because this is the Hunger Games, it gets even worse. Some victors are forced into prostitution after they win their games, and if they refuse, their loved ones are killed. One of these victors is Glimmer's probable mentor, Kashmir, who clearly taught her a lot about how to win over the capital and almost certainly advised her to use this charismatic, flirtatious persona. They have very similar angles, and they probably would have turned out the same way. It's chilling to think that if Glimmer had won, she would have met that fate. Being a career, she had all the odds in her favor, and yet she lost either way. But I doubt Glimmer knew that. Side note, it interests me that Katniss describes Glimmer's eyes as emerald green. Emeralds are something that her district produces, and they later become the last commodity she can offer the capital in the form of a mutt. Side note number 2, the gold for her interview contrasts the silver she wore at the tribute parade. The theme is still her district's main industry, but it shows she's stepping up her game. This is where she expects to shine. So I can only imagine how frustrated she must have been after Peeta and, by proxy, Katniss wiped the rest of them off the map with his declaration of love for his district partner. In the movies, Glimmer is given 7-1 odds of winning. The last direct mention of Glimmer before the games begin is about her tribute token. Cinna tells Katniss they eliminated a ring from that District 1 girl, though. If you twisted the gemstone, a spike popped out. Poisoned one. She claimed she had no knowledge the ring transformed, and there was no way to prove that she did, but she lost her token. It seems likely to me that she did know, and that explains a lot of inconsistencies throughout the book. Katniss says that Glimmer is incompetent with her chosen weapon, the bow and arrow, which is debatable, but we'll get to that later. So why choose it? First off, it makes sense for Glimmer to use a long-range weapon. Sponsors are a huge part of her strategy, and to get those, she needs her looks. She can't risk losing her pretty face in a brawl. And second off, having a more delicate weapon fits her image better, although a bow and arrow does take a ton of strength to use. She's not going for the brutal monster angle like Cato, so she's not going to have a heavy sword like him. Plus, Glimmer is a foil to Katniss. Katniss doesn't feel particularly beautiful or sexy, it's not part of her angle, but Glimmer embraces it fully. Katniss is named after something plain, a swamp potato, while Glimmer is named after something shiny and flashy. So it makes sense for the bow and arrow to be used to show this connection. Also, narratively, Katniss needed that bow and arrow. But my main theory is, Glimmer was depending on that ring. Maybe she didn't specialize in a specific weapon and that was her way around it. Maybe she was going to use it to kill her allies in their sleep, and losing the ring threw her whole plan off, which is why she ultimately came across as, well, not as dangerous as the other careers. To try and get that ring through Capitol security is some classic career arrogance. There's a chance she and her mentor figured that since District 1 is so favored, and she's done all she can to make the Capitol love her, she could get away with it. This won't be the last time that her efforts to please the Capitol go unrewarded. The ring symbolizes how Glimmer has to mask her deadliness with her appearance. She can be deadly, but it has to come in a pretty package, namely the ring. Ironic that after all this effort, she's turned into a literal animal in the end. Anyhow, I kind of like to headcanon that she killed the boy from District 4, because if she was willing to kill her allies with that ring, which I think is a reasonable assumption because disguised poison ring, why not take one out in the chaos of the bloodbath? That's just a thought, though. I have zero evidence for it. Right, the bloodbath. We don't know anything about the bloodbath in the books. We know who died, but we don't know who killed who, with the exception of the District 9 male killed by Clove. In the movies, Glimmer is shown doing quite a bit of stabbing, killing the girl from District 6. But we have to remember that in the books, both District 4 tributes were careers, so the kills would have been a little more spread out. We can torture ourselves all we want about how the bloodbath really went down in the books, but my conclusion is Glimmer didn't get a lot of kills, if any. And that's not because I think she was a bad career or less ruthless than she was in the movies. I have no doubt that she was brutal, but because I think she was dependent on that ring. Also, Clove only gets one bloodbath kill in the movies, and I know that's to make the whole almost killing Katniss thing more cinematic, but I can't see her settling for one kill. Glimmer is the only named career in the first book who didn't get one or more confirmed kill, but that doesn't mean she got none, as the books are told just from Katniss's perspective. So anyways, Glimmer gets the silver sheath of arrows and a bow already strung, just waiting to be engaged, those that were waiting for Katniss, from where it's resting on a mound of blanket rolls. The bow is silver, like her outfit at the tribute parade, rather than gold, like her interview outfit, which perhaps shows that Glimmer is now a little out of her depth, and not at the very top of her game, doing what she excels at like she was in the interviews. This is a death match. She and the other careers, minus the boy from District 4 who is dead, split the other life-sustaining spoils between themselves and leave the bodies to be collected. 11 cannons sound, and the careers set up camp by the lake. It's a good start to the games for them. Very early the next morning, the pack is out combing the forest for victims. I figured they would leave some to guard the camp, but I guess not, because Katniss thinks it'll be the remaining career tributes from Districts 1, 2, and 4, 2 boys and 3 girls. We can't be certain of who's there and who isn't, because Katniss is in a tree and can apparently only recognize Peeta and Cato's voices. Let's just include Glimmer in the several pairs of feet breaking into a run to jump on the unfortunate District 8 girl, or Heddle as the Hunger Games on stage has named her, who started a fire that led them to her. In the movies, Cato hands Glimmer his sword, and it's implied that she kills her, well, tries to, but I can't see that happening in the books. I'll explain why later. My guess is that Cato is the attempted killer, because he's the leader and probably the only one who would take on all his allies in the argument that follows. The careers, upon not hearing the cannon, debate whether the girl is dead. Peeta goes back to finish the job, he returns, the cannon sounds, and the careers leave. In the early, unused script of the movie, it's Glimmer who is insisting the girl was dead, but I don't think that's true of the books. They talk about Katniss for a bit in the interim, wondering if she bought into that sappy romance stuff, and saying that she seemed pretty simple-minded. Someone even says, every time I think about her spinning around in that dress, I want to puke. I wonder if Glimmer had any second thoughts about her own angle after hearing this. They also debate killing Peeta. In the movies, that part is a private conversation between Cato and Glimmer, but in the books, all the careers seem to be part of it. Let's skip to the Game Maker engineered fire, designed to herd the tributes together. The careers, all 5 plus Peeta, find Katniss resting her leg in a pool and pursue her. They, like her, are kind of beat up. You can hear their raspy voices calling to one another. Still, they are closing in, just like a pack of wild dogs. See that dog motif again? In the movies, as they pursue her, Glimmer repeatedly yells, "She's mine." She's all smiles and laughs. That's the most terrifying aspect of the careers, in my opinion. They're so heavily indoctrinated that they treat the literal Hunger Games like a summer camp. Anyway, in an effort to escape them, Katniss climbs a tree. She's, by her own estimation, at least 50 or 60 pounds lighter than the smallest career, so they're gonna have an embarrassingly hard time scaling this tree. When Cato decides to go after her, Glimmer says, "Here, take this, Cato," which is her only line in the book, and offers him the silver bow and sheath of arrows. He says no, pushes away the bow, and says, "I'll do better with my sword." I'll go more in depth about this in my video on Cato and Clove's relationship, but this interaction, the only one Glimmer and Cato specifically have in the book, doesn't sound like the cuddling up to each other that we see in the movies, which is partly why I said earlier I couldn't see him giving her the gift of killing the District 8 girl, like he offered Clove a chance at killing Katniss. Plus, Cato might not have a lot of respect for Glimmer, as he's brutish and arrogant and probably certain the only respectable strategy in the games is straight-up murder, unlike Glimmer's social manipulations. But I'm sure that she did keep that flirty persona from her interview going during the games, and there's no reason to assume she didn't at least try to flirt with him to get closer to the de facto pack leader. If that had worked and she'd had her ring, she could have used their closeness to kill him with it when he's unsuspecting. Cato tries to climb, obviously fails, and Glimmer, whose name Katniss scoffs at, quote, "Ugh, the names the people in District 1 give their children are so ridiculous," unquote, scales the tree until the branches begin to crack under her feet and she has the good sense to stop. Again, Glimmer isn't portrayed as stupid in the books or in the movies, so I don't know where that whole theory came from. Katniss is at least 80 feet high now. Glimmer tries to shoot her, and it's, quote, "immediately evident that she's incompetent with a bow," unquote. I feel like that's a little harsh. She's in the middle of climbing a tree, Katniss is really high up, and she does get it close enough to Katniss that she can teasingly wave it above her head. So I don't know if Suzanne Collins intended for Glimmer to be genuinely bad with the bow and arrow, or if Katniss is just such an archery expert that even a decent shot seems bad to her. Anyways, the careers regroup on the ground, furious that Katniss has made them look so foolish. Peeta convinces them to give it a rest and deal with Katniss in the morning. For some reason, they listen to him and set up camp. Let's talk a little about Tracker Jackers. They're basically mutant super wasps, mutations created in Capitol Labs. They have a sting that raises a lump the size of a plum on contact. Most people can't tolerate more than a few stings. Some die at once, and if you do live, the hallucinations might drive you mad. And there just so happens to be a nest of them above Katniss in the tree. Rue, from another tree, points it out to her and Katniss starts sawing it down. Katniss guesses that Glimmer was supposed to be on guard, but fatigue overcame her, as she's leaning against the trunk of the tree, not cuddled up with Cato she is in the movies. If there's an argument to be made that Glimmer is an incompetent career, this is the strongest evidence. Falling asleep on guard with an enemy in the tree you're literally sleeping against is next-level arrogance, but that is the trademark of a career. The Tracker Jacker nest falls and bursts open like an egg on the ground. A furious swarm of Tracker Jackers take to the air, and the careers wake to a full-scale Tracker Jacker attack. Peeta and a couple others drop everything and run for the lake. The careers are trying to escape the Tracker Jackers by taking to the water. I think that Glimmer got the worst of the wasps because of her position at the foot of the tree when they fell, but regardless, she and the girl from District 4 received multiple stings before they're even out of Katniss's line of sight. Glimmer appears to go completely mad, shrieking and trying to bat the wasps off with her bow. She then calls to the others for help, but of course no one returns, not even her district partner Marvel. The girl from District 4 staggers out of sight, while Glimmer falls, twitches hysterically on the ground for a few minutes, then goes still. The wasps vanish in pursuit of the others, while Glimmer is twitching to death on the ground. Katniss theorizes that Glimmer is in a sort of coma, her heart still struggling against the wasp venom. If that's the case, I really hope it was a painless one. The cannon goes off just as Katniss reaches her to take the bow and arrows from her body. Glimmer survived for 5 days in the arena, and she died on Sunday, July 15th. In the movies, it was roughly 3 days, 6 hours, and 26 minutes. Like her name suggests, she shone brightly, but fleetingly. This girl, so breathtakingly beautiful in her golden dress the night of the interviews, is unrecognizable. Her features eradicated, her limbs 3 times their normal size. The stinger lumps have begun to explode, spewing putrid green liquid around her. It's the most horrific of ironies, as Glimmer as a character represents the obsession with appearance that pervades both the Capitol and District 1. Beauty and death were so intertwined for Glimmer. In being mutilated by the Tracker Jackers, she lost her beauty. Losing her beauty, the one thing that gave her value in the Capitol's eyes, she lost her life, killed by their creations. Again, she lost either way. It's so dehumanizing to be manipulated into centering her whole life around her appearance, reduced to it, and ending up distorted, grotesque, hideous to look at. I think it's very purposeful that Glimmer is the only tribute whose body is really destroyed after death. Katniss has to break several of what used to be her fingers with a stone to free the bow, pulls on her arm to reach the sheath of arrows and causes the flesh to disintegrate, has to get a hold on what must be her ribcage to force her onto her stomach, catches the sheath of arrows on her shoulder blade or something else, and has her dried blood on the bow and arrows for some time. Glimmer's body was all that mattered to the Capitol, and so it became all that she was, and in the end it was destroyed. But she's not left to rest in peace, as she is one of the creepy wolf mutts that tear Cato to shreds. One of them, a good-sized mutt with silky waves of blonde fur, takes a running start and leaps onto the horn. Its back legs must be incredibly powerful, because it lands a mere 10 feet below us, its pink lips pulled back in a snarl. For a moment, it hangs there, and in that moment I realize what else unsettled me about the mutts. The green eyes glowering at me are unlike any dog or wolf any canine I've ever seen. They are unmistakably human. And that revelation is barely registered when I notice the collar with the number 1 inlaid with jewels, and the whole horrible thing hits me. The blonde hair, the green eyes, the number. It's Glimmer. Katniss fires an arrow into its throat, and its body twitches and flops onto the ground with a thud. It's widely debated whether or not the tribute's actual eyes were used to create the mutts, but since we're talking about Glimmer, I'd say yes. I went over this a little bit earlier. Glimmer's value to the Capitol isn't just what her district produces, jewels like her emerald eyes, but her body and her looks. Of course they'd exploit both post-mortem, using her eyes to make a disturbing spectacle. Also, in an early draft of the film, there's this. PETA, when he paints the games, includes Glimmer's mutt, unmistakably the blonde, green-eyed one meant to be Glimmer, snarling as it makes its way toward us, rather than her human self. The horror of her death and after her death completely eclipses the memory of her beauty and life. One more thing taken by the Capitol. Her appearance, as I mentioned earlier, was her identity, and the Capitol strips her of it, literally in turning her into a dog, and figuratively in making her grotesque. Katniss describes the visit to District 1 during her victory tour as a special kind of awful, as she personally killed the girl, Glimmer, and the boy from District 1, whose name she discovers is Marvel. So, what do we take away from this? Glimmer was a career. She, like District 1, mimicked the Capitol's values to get close to that power, but none of that saved her from immense suffering at the Capitol's hands. She's given no more dignity or mercy than anyone else. Take how, in the deleted scene of her interview, the Capitol audience laughs at her name when Caesar introduces her. Even the careers, even Glimmer in her area of expertise, are at the Capitol's mercy. None of the careers are given mercy despite their loyalty. Actually, they all die some of the worst deaths in the games. It all comes back to that core theme. Know who your enemy is. And it's certainly not Glimmer. I can't reiterate that enough. The careers served as antagonists and did terrible, awful things, yes, but they're not the enemy. They are indoctrinated children, and like everyone else in Panem, they are victims of the Capitol. Glimmer's character doesn't just foreshadow the treatment of victors like Finnick and Kashmir. She represents the Capitol's morals, or lack thereof, their obsession with beauty, and the normalization of sexualizing minors for entertainment. She's part of a greater message in the series. Glimmer is fictional, but the issues that she faces as a woman in a messed up system with a hyper-focus on appearance aren't. Glimmer is an embodiment of the sheer unfairness of any corrupt society. No one wins except those in power. Everyone else is screwed over. Glimmer did everything right. She gave all that she could to earn the Capitol's favor and save herself, yet died one of the most horrific deaths in the entire series, and her body, like those of almost all the other tributes, was disfigured into a mutt post-mortem. Never free of the Capitol, always a piece in their games. Just one more luxury good from District 1. I hope you take something away from this video, my first ever YouTube video by the way, so I hope it was okay. A new perspective or idea or just sympathy for this child. Maybe not an innocent child, but very much a child, brainwashed, dehumanized, and exploited, who lived and died in the name of a system that miserably failed her. Goodbye, Glimmer. We hardly knew you.